Hello and welcome to the Up Seattle podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Seattle and Washington sports. I'm your host, Tyler Cartwright, joined as always by my co-host,
John Carey.
And let me throw away that microphone stand. John likes to watch me talk with my hands in the mic. Today we've got some lovely Seahawks discussion, not so lovely Seahawks loss discussion about the 49ers last week. And then we hop into some college football, some little bit of Kraken, a little bit of Sounders, and then obviously we've got our value dogs. Anything else, John, before we get started?
Just how handsome you look in that jersey. Let's go Blues, huh?
Thanks, baby. I love your computer light flashing back and forth depending on what your background is. It's going to be great.
It's going to be happening all night.
He's at a hotel room in Vegas right now, just vibing.
Vegas, Okanagan, Washington. The Las Vegas of Washington. North Central Washington.
All right, here is some Coyote Picnic. All right, John. First things first, let's talk last week. It's been, at this point, we're recording Thursday night. It has been 4 days since, with the Guinness on hand. I love to see it.
That's correct.
It has been 4 days since what was, in my opinion, a pretty rough loss to the 49ers, 36-24 on Sunday afternoon. How are we feeling?
Okay, yeah, jumping right into Seahawks. I was hoping to save the pain, but no, let's do it. Let's rip the Band-Aid.
We get it over with here.
Yeah, this was a tough one. I think it went wrong in the way that we anticipated it could go wrong, and then also went wrong in ways that we didn't necessarily anticipate. So that's called a fun double whammy. I think 1,000 feet overview, this highlighted some defensive deficiencies that we've been seeing develop over the course of this year. First 2 weeks of the season, we were feeling pretty optimistic about this Mike McDonald defense and what he was able to do. And recently, this defense has completely reverted into arguably worse than our Pete Carroll-led defense last year. The way we've played the last couple of weeks, the Hawks defense looks like one of the bottom 5 in the NFL, and that's not a good place to be, obviously. So, a lot of defensive issues, and then also some fun issues on offense. Yeah,
I think we really see the defensive inefficiencies here. You look at our Pro Football Reference team defense, just statistically, our yards per pass is, we're 20th in the league. And our rushing defense is just so poor. And I think recently it's probably been because of the absence of Byron Murphy, who was a very nice defensive piece early in the season. But at the same time, you kind of look and you're like, okay, those first 3 games, we were not playing against, the upper echelon of opponents. We went into overtime against the Patriots. We had, we thought the Giants were bad, but we were getting beat up a little bit by them too. And we ended up losing that game. It's just been kind of a weird stretch, and I don't really know where the Seahawks defense goes from here. They get Byron Murphy back this weekend, but I don't think getting one guy is going to totally fix this rushing defense. And I know we're down one of our safeties. Jenkins is put on the IR this week, so I just think our defense is kind of in shambles, to be honest. And I don't know. This 49ers, their third and fourth string running backs were running all over us last week. And it's just it was tough to watch. And, for all intents and purposes, Geno, we can hop into the Geno side of things maybe in a bit. Do you have anything else to say on the defensive side? Because I've got some things to say about Geno, kind of a rough day for him.
You called it on our defense's inability to stop the run. Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerendo really tore us wide open, which is a very scary sign to think that we will likely be going up against Christian McCaffrey in a couple of weeks. But we knew that the defensive line was going to be an issue, especially with the injuries up front. I think what was most disappointing to me was our inability to limit yards after the catch in the secondary. Because, obviously, Purdy was able to do basically whatever he wanted. There was very little pressure generated over the course of the game. And their running game was really successful. But I just wanted to shout out Deebo Samuel, first came back off of injuries. 3 receptions for 102 yards and a touchdown. That's 34 yards per reception. Most of that yak, obviously. And a big part of that was he was just big boying our defensive backs and our safeties. Either avoiding contact or, out physicaling them to get past them and generate extra yards. He was a man amongst boys out there, and that was discouraging, because with the injuries on the defensive line, you can anticipate balls finding their targets, but then you have to stop them there, and that was not happening. They were running free against us basically all game. So, yeah, we kind of anticipated the defense being a mess. It was a little messier than we had hoped, but I think the offenses might be a little more interesting to talk about because that's where there may have been more developments coming from last week.
Yeah, I think one other thing that I wanted to hit on is our defense and our defensive line actually is, I think, kind of a top 5 defensive line. When you look at statistically what they're able to do in terms of pressures, they have 68 pressures. That's the second most in all of the NFL right now. When you look at percentage of the time that we hurry the quarterback, that's top 6, I think. They're 6th. They're doing a good job of getting to the quarterback. They have not been able to finish as frequently as I think, would have liked. And really just their ability to access the quarterback hasn't been as nice. And I think this is kind of what we saw, or what we've seen in football in general, where it's like, we can get to the quarterback, but all it is these check down passes. And like you're talking about the yards after the catch, these check down passes. And then it's all on our, cornerbacks and safeties who have really an inability to tackle effectively. I remember there was one play made by Julian Love, and everybody was commenting, or the commentators were commenting on how big that tackle was on, a third down stop. And it's like, that's such a rare thing for the Seahawks defense to get, just because it's been really tough. And that's kind of just how football is being played right now. It's check downs and trying to get some yards after the catch in total. So just kind of wanted to point that out. Seahawks are kind of victims of the current state of the NFL. Yeah.
Yep, that's very real. I was discouraged. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about the offense. The passing game, to see, Geno's one of the best guys we've discussed before, one of the only guys in the NFL pushing the ball down the field, getting guys, with 15, 16 average yards per catch. Kenneth Walker in this game, inability on the ground, 14 carries, 32 yards, 2.3 yards per carry. 8 receptions for 37 yards. That's a 4.5 yard per reception average. That's just atrocious. And, the running is a little bit more on him and a little bit more on the offensive line. But that receiving thing, that's him and that's Geno, and that's also just the state of the NFL. And I think we're seeing defenses getting better at adjusting of like, no, we're not going to let your running backs get 7 yards a catch out of the backfield in the flat. We're just not going to do it.
Yep.
We're moving up and protecting those things. Kind of the push and pull of NFL defenses is, nothing lasts for long. And so what we're seeing, there's this two high safety thing introduced really to stop the Chiefs back in the day. And it's kind of revolutionized defense in the NFL, made attacking deep downfield almost impossible, and it opened up the short stuff. And now guess what? Defenses are starting to adjust. They're moving up. Suddenly, the New Orleans Saints no longer look like the best offense in the NFL after 2 weeks because defenses aren't letting Alvin Kamara do whatever he wants around the line of scrimmage. So I do think we're seeing in very real time defenses counteract a lot of those trends. And honestly, of all the teams in the NFL, the Hawks should be relatively unaffected by that change because they've been attacking downfield anyway. This should be making their lives easier. But there's a lot to talk about their offensive game plan and the results of what happened in this game offensively. I don't want to monopolize the time. What did you think of how this team performed offensively?
Yeah, I think when you look at the numbers, box score wise, you think, oh man, Geno did not have a good game. He, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. I think it was just over 300 yards. That's all well and good, but for Geno, the 2 interceptions really stands out just because you don't usually see that from Geno. We're used to a 1 touchdown game with 0 interceptions, 300 yards. Like, just get the guys to the 20-yard line, and then we'll finish it out somehow besides you getting a touchdown pass, because that's how fantasy people love their Geno Smith. I think when you look at the kind of in-depth numbers, though, you see that Geno is hurried the most out of any quarterback in all of football right now. His time to pass, I think, is sub 2 seconds from what I saw at some point. I was looking at these numbers, I think, after the game when I was like, what is happening with this? And Geno's the fastest guy getting the ball out. He just has no time. Our linemen just cannot support the deep routes that Geno is good at throwing. And when it comes to, short routes and things like that, JSN's great, but Tyler Lockett and DK are not the best at running short routes. And so what you see is just like an inefficiency in how the team is constructed between DK he needs time to be able to get open, run by receivers because he's more of a vertical runner. We know that, or a slant runner. And then Tyler Lockett is the best at finding spots when his quarterback has time and is able to scramble out of the pocket, which is just not something that Geno does. So really the only connection there that makes a ton of sense, and Geno's deep ball is great, but with the way that our line is set up, JSN and Geno really have to be on their game. Otherwise, this team is really going to struggle. And Geno's he's just not mobile enough with this offensive line. He's been sacked, I think, like the fourth most out of all quarterbacks. Sorry. It's just been tough.
Yeah, I think that's a good note, kind of the contradiction between the construction and the reality of this team. Part of that is, front office stuff and coaching stuff going into the season of, hey, if you want to build dice them up deep attack, maybe invest a little bit in your offensive line so that you have the time necessary to get the ball down the field. I don't know. Sounds like a relatively novel idea. But, with that, but you called it out right. DK is the ultimate vertical threat, super limited on any routes that don't involve a man streaking down the field like a bat out of hell. Lockett works best on the edges. You still need time to set up those corner and bench routes. And even a guy like Noah Fant, our primary tight end, that is a seam attacking tight end. He is not a guy that, runs a lot of, short little dig routes. He likes to run down the middle of the seams and attack with his speed. So, you're right. This team wants to look down. Geno wants to move his eyes down the field, and he's not always getting the opportunities to do that. This is also just like, there's a lot to say about this Geno game. Now, obviously, the number one Geno detractor in the state of Washington is sitting here talking right now. And I can't decide if I really should be mad at Geno or not, because any 2-pick game I'm very disappointed with, especially, with Geno being the guy he is. I don't think he has the excuses to be throwing interceptions the way a guy like Josh Allen does. But he is also not a guy that we are supposed to ask to throw the ball 52 times.
Yeah.
I know a lot of that's game script. I understand that they were down big early and had to try and crawl back, which is why they only ran the ball 20 times. But, they even ran the ball 20 times. This is a game where they had like 78 offensive plays. Speaks to just how much offense there was in this game, how short and successful those 49ers drives were. But, I can't decide whether or not I'm allowed to be frustrated with Geno for throwing 2 picks when it was 2 picks on 52 attempts in a negative game script. So, there's a bigger conversation to be had about the Hawks now, and I think now is a good time to have it. This 3-0 start, people were really excited. We've solved all our problems. Geno is God. But much like the New Orleans Saints, this team has tumbled from a very exciting start to a much more discomforting present at 3-3. Matchup next week against the 4-2 Falcons. And where is this team? What is their direction? How do they improve? And I think those are kind of tough questions because defensively they have injury issues. They also have personnel issues. And offensively, there seems to be a real disconnect between the offensive weapons that this team has and the way that Ryan Day wants to, put them out there. Did I just say Ryan Day? Not the Ohio State head coach.
I figured you were just gonna wave by that. Call it just Ryan. Ryan
the man, Ryan Grubb. Been watching a lot of Ohio State content roasting Ryan Day about the Oregon loss, which is stuck in my brain. But Grubb wants to play the way that Geno wants to play and the way that DK wants to play. He wants to attack downfield. But you cannot do that unless you have an offensive line that's above median in the NFL, and this offensive line is not. So after the 3-0 start, I was ready to be a believer. I think right now I'm feeling my most pessimistic about the outcome of this team's season.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in the same boat as you. We were both, like we said at the beginning of the season, we both thought this team would be about 500, and that 3-0 start might have got me a little bit more excited, but I didn't think I, strayed too far. I still think this is an 8-9, 9-8 type team. And yeah, the problems are so visible when it comes to, you saw the clip of DK yelling at Ryan Grubb. I'm sure that was circulating all over Twitter and Instagram and whatnot about just, he wants certain plays to be run. And it's like Ryan Grubb would love those plays to be run. He would love to be able to get the ball deep to DK and let him, do his thing, especially with Geno. And those three as a trio probably make one of the more exciting, QB, wide receiver, offensive coordinator combinations. And then you just look at the limitations in the run game because this offensive line is so bad. The offensive line can't go hit people to create holes for Kenneth Walker to run through. 14 carries for 32 yards. We didn't talk about how bad that was. That's like 2.3 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Like that's awful. And this team ran the ball 20 times out of their 72 total offensive plays. It's just, they're just unable to get anything going because of their line. And so Ryan Grubb either needs to figure out a new scheme where when it comes to, I like to call it kind of pick and popping with the tight end, like, set a little block and then throw a quick screen pass, get a little chunk yardage, those kinds of things, and just do that the entire game. Like, I know you want to take a shot and maybe take 1 or 2 shots during the game, but at this point, you just need those 4-yard plays every single time because that's how football is played right now. That is like the entirety of football. That's why it kind of is a little boring because everybody at the start of the season was like, how do we adjust to this? And the Seahawks have slowly, I think, been figuring out that they just kind of need to take it chunk by chunk. And at the same time, their defense has been absolutely atrocious. So it's like it's been quite the tough 3-game stretch against what I would argue are 2 very good offensive teams and 1 middling offensive team.
Sure. And obviously, this very good Niners offense, which, we both have a lot of respect for. They're missing arguably their most potent weapon, but, the point is still well received. I just think, it's easy. It's very easy to put on your hindsight glasses and be like, hey, maybe this is why, instead of taking Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is obviously a very talented player and a fun thing to wave around, those are the places you need to invest in your offensive line because you hit the nail on the head. Grubb, Geno, DK, the 3 kind of heads of this offense down the line, all want to play the same way. But to play that way, they need help in an area where Jackson Smith-Njigba cannot assist them. This team would probably be more effective running the scheme they want to run without Jackson Smith and with a good offensive line. Get a good left guard for Geno. And it's not rare to see teams mess this up. There's nothing teams like, trust me, I'm a Colts fan. No, there's nothing teams like to do more than draft a 2nd or 3rd round wide receiver and say that he's going to be a stud instead of investing in the line that protects the most important player on your team. So, I guess with that being said, maybe a good point to move into our discussion about this upcoming game against Atlanta. My initial thoughts are, I don't feel very good about it. This is a 4-2 Atlanta team that could easily be 5-1 if referees weren't in love with Patrick Mahomes. And they have scored 38 and 36 points in their last 2 games, respectively. Their offense is clicking in a real way, behind Kirk Cousins and Bijan Robinson. And they're, going to come in and play this Hawks defense, which has been absolutely floundering, and I'm worried they're going to put up 45 against us.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. The one thing that I will say, Byron Murphy's supposed to come back this weekend. And then everybody loves Kobe Bryant, the, I guess at this point, backup.
Rest in peace.
Well, Kobe Bryant on the Seahawks, the backup cornerback or safety. I don't remember what position exactly he plays. I'm assuming he's coming in for Jenkins at the safety position. Everybody loves him because he's able to disrupt receivers. Like he's really good at, forcing fumbles and that kind of thing. When he was in limited playing time last year, and I think the year before as well, he was really good. And so that's a little exciting just for him to get some more time. And I think this defense will be better. It's also worth noting that the Falcons have been playing against, I think who did they play? The Buccaneers went into overtime where they scored 36 points on them. And then who did they play last week? I don't think they played anybody.
The Panthers are not very good.
Played anybody good.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit, things have swayed the Falcons' way purely because of who they've been playing. The Buccaneers, they put up points. They put up 51 points on the Saints last, I guess, 2 weeks ago now. But the Saints just put up 3 points, or I guess 10 points against the Broncos this week. So, and the Saints are like nothing to write home about. So,
well, are we absolutely certain that the Buccaneers aren't better than the Seahawks? Their offense looks really, really good.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. But I'm talking about the Seahawks defense versus the Falcons. I think the Buccaneers defense, they have Vita Vea, who's obviously an ex UW or UW alum guy. We love him, but
yeah, class of what, 84? The dude's ancient.
He was what, 20? I think he was 2018, 2019. Same year as Jake Browning.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
But I think the Seahawks defense will compare to the Buccaneers. I think this is actually going to be a good game. The question is whether or not we can get our offense rolling. And I think we've been able to get our offense rolling to a decent amount. If we could score 29 points, I wouldn't be shocked if we win this game 29-28. Like it could be close. But we will definitely see what can happen. This run defense, Byron Murphy is going to need to be back in tip-top shape against Bijan and Algiers. So
yeah, not only against the run game, but also get some pressure on Kirk. I mean, Kirk has been dicing teams up. He's been looking like he's in midseason form right now for them. So yeah, Byron's going to have to come in and pull double duty right off the bat, being our best run defender and also getting some pressure on the quarterback. So bless the rookie, a tough situation to be in, and I wish him success. I think you're a little more optimistic than I am. I'm worried about this game. I think the Falcons offense is going to do whatever it wants. And I think the Hawks will be able to score. I would like this to be more of a repeat of the Detroit game, where it's just a score fest and hopefully we can come out on top. I worry that it'll be more like the Niners game, where it's going to be a one-sided score fest where we're always trying to catch up. Yeah, trying to avoid those negative game scripts is going to be really, really important. And yeah, this will be a good test. Currently, Falcons -3, which may come into play later for us.
Yeah, we will see. One thing to note: Seattle had a chance to come back against San Francisco there. Granted, there was the missed call on the muffed punt, or what should have been a muffed punt, but they had a chance to take the lead late and just. I think it was the second Geno interception where they gave it up with a couple minutes left and the 49ers just kind of ran it out. But they were in that game, I think, a little later than it seemed score-wise. But you're right. I think either way, this could get away from the Seahawks if they don't keep pace. And we will see how big of an influence Byron Murphy is on this defense. If the Seahawks win this game, we might need to talk about some Byron Murphy defensive rookie of the year type stuff. We will see.
There's already been buzz about that. Byron is an absolute stud, maybe the steal of the draft. We love that pick when it happens, and we still love it now. So
for sure.
Whether or not he is able to completely turn our season around on his big, brawny rookie shoulders should not impact the fact that he is right up there in the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year. The dude's a stud.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to do college or you want to do value dogs?
Man, I'm feeling good about the value dogs, to be honest, even though it was a rough week last week.
Bro, we're doing great. We are making our listeners so much money. It's ridiculous. All they have to do is not listen to us.
Yeah, go the other way. Do not listen to anything we said. Last week, we went a combined 1-5, and
Wow.
John was able to clip one of the 3 underdogs that covered last week. With his Indianapolis Colts. We both liked that line. Like I said, I would have taken
Colts.
it if I knew the Colts were plus. I thought they were -1. So yeah, last week, underdogs. They go 3-10-1. We finally have a push. I don't think we've noted a push yet in a while. And then the week before, the underdogs went 4-10. So the last 2 weeks, underdogs are 7-20-1, and we've gotten 3 of those. So not a bad percentage, all things considered.
Well, yeah, well said. But I like to think, I think you told me before we started, we are each 6-12 so far on the season.
Yes.
That means if you are betting against us, you are 24-12 on your bets on the year. You are welcome for doubling your value. We're here all week, so please keep coming back.
Yes. So just so everybody knows, over the course of the season, the underdogs are currently 45% against the spread. So sub 50%, which is what we expect based on those last 2 weeks. But
we'll get it back.
Yeah, we'll get it back. So, John, I went first last week. You can have the first pick this week.
Wow, that is awfully generous of you. And there's so many good picks to choose from.
I've got 3, and I'm not wavering. So if you pick one of mine, that's totally fine.
Oh yeah, we're not. We need to come back here. We can't.
Yeah, we're not trying to pick 6 different games. There's no way the underdogs have 6 different wins.
Correct. Not taking Saints plus 2.5 against the Broncos. I'll tell you what there. No, with my first pick, and this is going to be a barn burner right out of the gates. I don't care. I have no fear. I'm not afraid of you, listeners. I'm in Okanagan. You can't even find me. I am taking the New England Patriots plus 6 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is kind of a vibes gut check type of call. The Jaguars are completely disintegrating before our eyes. Doug Peterson is literally watching his professional coaching life come to an end.
His seat is on fire as we speak, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how he's still sitting down, man. It looks very toasty. And the Patriots have a really solid defense, and Drake May looked good in their first week.
He looked good last week.
Yeah, his first real game of playing, he threw 3 touchdowns. He made some rookie mistakes, but he's moving the ball down the field. I anticipate them. I think Jacksonville is anticipating this to be like their get-right game. And if the Patriots get the ball first and move the ball down the field and score a touchdown, like, I'm expecting that, like, SpongeBob meme where it's all the SpongeBobs running around with the room on fire. That'll be Doug Peterson's head if Drake May leads a scoring drive on his first drive of the game. I just see major disintegration potential for this Jacksonville team. In London, again, how is this team? It's going to be the London Jaguars here in a couple weeks. And it's also 6 points, which is a big spread. And while the underdogs have not been doing great on the year, the bigger dogs have been doing better in terms of covering the spread and winning outright. So give me plus 6. Give me the New England Patriots. Can't believe I'm betting on Drake May.
Wow. Yeah. So I had this one on my list right before the podcast. And then I hopped on and I was like, I thought about it more and I was like, the Jaguars have been in London for a week. Ramondre Stevenson is not expected to play. But Drake May did inspire me. I was this close to keeping it on my list, and then I decided to take it off in favor of another game. But I like the pick. I just worry that this is the Jaguars get-right game, and we'll see what happens with that one.
Bro, you say they've been in London a week, like that's an advantage. Just think about what all that bangers and mash is going to do to their digestive systems, man.
A lot of pints, man.
It could be getting messy at halftime, I will tell you what.
I think those Jacksonville guts are ready for anything, man.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
All right. Anyways, with my first pick, I'm going to take the New York Giants plus 3.5 against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Giants are actually much better than they've been given credit for this season. And I think in general, they're just like kind of on the rise. Daniel Jones has looked pretty decent. He obviously looked great against the Seahawks. But what it really comes down to is this is Malik Neighbors coming back after a week off. Maybe it was 2 weeks off, but Malik Neighbors, obviously a huge catalyst. But what we really saw was over the last couple of weeks, Daniel Jones was able to find a way to get the football to his other receivers and score touchdowns in other ways. And so the addition of Malik Neighbors, who is obviously the most targeted rookie, I think he has the most yards or had the most yards at the time of his injury. So I think he'll just be able to integrate back into this offense, and they'll be able to keep doing what they've been doing against an Eagles team who only won by 4 against the Browns. So I don't really know what else there is to say about that. The Eagles, that was a big win for them, and it's the Browns. The Browns have been absolute booty cheeks this entire year. So
sure, no, I think that's totally fair. I think The Eagles do look messy. Sirianni, talk about hot seat potential. They're going through some things over in the city of brotherly love. And the Giants are, I'd feel better about this line if they had their star rookie receiver playing. But Danny J's been pretty solid this year, and their defense.
Isn't Neighbors playing? I saw he was playing.
Oh, he is? He's coming back.
I think so. That's why I picked it. I was literally looking at it. This was my substitution game.
If that's the case, then I feel great about this line. I'm going to let you have it, but if he's playing, that makes this a much better line because their defense is sneaky underrated.
Yeah.
Danny J's been really solid, and he's been doing what we've asked Gino to do, which is he's not turning the ball over, which is all you really can ask of a mediocre quarterback. I like that line. Not much to say about it. I'm going to move right into my second pick because I like talking about me. I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs plus 1.5 against the 49ers.
Thought about it.
This Niners team looked awfully sharp against a beat-up Seattle Seahawks defense. The Kansas City defense is one of the best in the NFL. They also have the Zebras helping them out at every single turn. And Mahomes is a guy, he just doesn't... Mahomes' record in, close games is, his record in close betting line games is ridiculous. He's so efficient. When the odds makers say this one's a toss-up, he always seems to come out on top. And I want that Mahomes mystique. I want this Kansas City defense. I don't want to root for the horrible Kareem Hunt or the awful Juju Smith-Schuster, but I believe if anybody can get the most out of them, it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So give me the Chiefs plus 1.5.
Totally fair. This one is it's a rematch of the Super Bowl last year, and obviously
we all
the
know
Chiefs
how
won
that
one. Yeah. This is the Niners revenge game. Also, if they lose this, they'll be 3-4 and still kind of looking up. So I think the Niners kind of have to win this, and the Chiefs are 6-0. The Chiefs are kind of sitting pretty on their little throne, and they need to lose one at some point. This was the one that I thought they would lose. This is the only reason I avoided it, but I appreciate the pick. I understand it. With my second pick, I am going to take the Las Vegas Raiders plus 6.5.
Wow.
At least when I saw it last. Plus 7 now. It's plus 7 now against the LA Rams. The only reason I take this line is because I think it's shifted so much because Cooper Kupp is supposed to be back this week. And I think the addition of Cooper Kupp is not a 3 or 4 point swing. I think this line, imagine if Cooper Kupp wasn't there, it would have been maybe even. If you really think about this line, Cooper Kupp being there changed it dramatically. And I just think the Raiders are, they get their get their wins, quote unquote. They don't really win that many games, but they get their pressure from Max Crosby infiltrating the offensive line and attacking the quarterback. And I think their offense has to be just good enough. And 7 points is a lot against what is I believe 1-5, 1-4 Rams team. I just think the addition of Cooper Kupp does not make this a 7-point game.
That's an interesting call. I respect the call. I respect the high points. 7 points is a lot. I think that's your best argument. I feel a little differently. To be honest with you, I do think Cooper Kupp's worth 3 to 4 points, mostly because I love him dearly, but also because of this Rams team. There's a reason. We literally saw when Puka Nacua goes down, Matt Stafford will target Cooper Kupp 20 times in a game, easily. And that speaks to how talented Cooper is and the connection that they have. It also speaks to the fact that if he's not throwing to Cooper Kupp, he has to throw the ball to the likes of Tutu Atwell. So having a guy like Cooper Kupp on the field does make a huge difference for what this offense can do. This is also a Raiders team that lost their starting quarterback to inequity, or not inequity, to inability in previous weeks, and they're now rolling out Aiden O'Connell, and who just lost their best wide receiver so he could go, meet up with Ayahuasca Rodgers in New York. I think this Raiders team's in a little bit of disarray. But with all that being said, I think your best argument is a simple one. 7 points is a lot, and you have that in the bag.
Yeah, we'll see. I think this game is either going to be super low scoring, nobody will be able to move the ball, or it's going to be 31-28, and it's just going to be like nobody can get a stop. And I don't think there's going to be any in between. I think it's going to be pretty even no matter what, which is why 7 points is a nice little addition.
Totally. Okay, with my last pick, that's so funny, man. We were locked in. We said we're going to potentially overlap, and we haven't yet.
It's coming.
Yeah, well, it might be right here. With my last pick here, it's kind of an interesting one. I'm taking the Detroit Lions plus 1.5 against the Minnesota Vikings.
It's not mine. I had it, and then I erased it when I was doing my list.
That's crazy. See, I found your first draft paper in the waste bin, so I see why we got these mixed up. This one's very interesting because obviously Detroit just lost their star defensive player, Aiden Hutchinson, for the season with a tibial fracture, which is very disappointing for the team and for the city and obviously for Aiden. So we're certainly wishing him well. But this Detroit offense has easily looked like the best offense in professional football. I know statistically the Washington Commanders have been. I don't think there's a comparison. I think this Detroit offense is completely electric. Jamison Williams has broken out in such a real way. Amon-Ra's still there. Sam Laporta has basically been an also-ran in their offense. The guy was breaking all the rookie tight end records. He can hardly get a target anymore because of all the offensive success they're finding. Their running game looks amazing. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs both look so solid. Their offensive line looks great. Dan Campbell's calling really fun. I guess really Ben Johnson's calling really fun offensive schemes. I think they have the best offense in professional football. Now, what's interesting about this matchup with the Vikings is the Vikings have a very solid, very good NFL offense. They also have had arguably the best defense in football so far. I don't think they actually are the best defense, but in terms of output, they've been right there. So you'd say, why would you ever pick a team that has a great offense and probably a pretty bad defense against a team with a good offense and a good defense? I just think, especially after these last couple weeks, I believe that Detroit has the ability to just overwhelm the opposing team again and again and again. And I'm going to keep betting on them until I see something else happen. And 1.5 is just not enough to me for a team that looks unstoppable on the offensive side of the ball, in my personal opinion.
No, totally fair. The reason I stayed away with it was because it's either the Aiden Hutchinson team revenge game where they're like, we got to win this for Aiden, or it's the, oh snap, we didn't realize how big of a factor Aiden Hutchinson was in on the defensive side of the ball. And if their defense is unable to get stops, the offense can only touch the ball for so long, in which case they can only score so many points.
No, that's totally fair. I think the way you describe that's totally fair too. This will either be like, we're doing this for Aiden, or like, holy shit, where's Aiden? Worth noting that he was probably the defensive player of the year front runner, like a 24% pressure rate.
He was nuts.
Yeah. Absolutely insane, the disruption he caused. They will be missing him in a real way. And there's a guy named Justin Jefferson on the other team. So, it may be silly, but I have to see it before I stop taking him.
Yeah, totally fair. I just stayed away because of the two potential outcomes. I didn't want the 50-50 chance. All right, with my third and final pick. You're not going to like this pick. I already know you're not going to like it. I am taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 3.5 against the Baltimore Ravens.
Yuck!
Maybe I was overthinking this week. Maybe I should have just gone with the teams that are really good plus points. But the reason I'm taking this is because we talked last week about how the Ravens do not have the best passing defense. And the Buccaneers have what has been a very, very good offense. They scored 51 points last week, like I said earlier. They've got Mike Evans. They've got Godwin, who's really had a good season. They've also got Bucky Irving, who's been a sneaky good running back, like secondary running back. He's kind of taken over the lead role, but Bucky Irving's been really nice out of Oregon. And Baker looks great. And the other side of that is, I think we talked about Vita Vea earlier. Vita Vea is like kind of the ultimate defensive lineman, like just absorb everything guy. Like he allows the Tampa Bay defense, and granted the Tampa Bay defense hasn't been amazing, but that's against like pocket presence and people who don't have great running backs or running backs who can just run. I will be intrigued to see the Derek, I guess I'm looking at Bijan, who's kind of more of a pass catching running back versus the Derrick Henry, give the ball to him, let him run. Like, I think Vita Vea is a good matchup in that regard, which is why, good passing and an interesting defensive matchup there with Derrick Henry, who has been all of the Ravens offense. It's the only reason I'm taking the plus 3.5 points.
Wow, there were like 8 different things you said in that segment.
Yeah, I was all over the place.
Describing Bijan Robinson as a pass-catching running back.
That's what I do. I picked him like the last 2 years, and he's just, all he does is catch 3 passes, which just gives him an automatic 6 points. Like, that's what it is.
The state of Texas is on fire right now because of that statement. Calling Vita Vea the ultimate defensive lineman, there's just a lot there. But and I think I was looking at this line very closely too. The yuck was an exaggeration. 1, I like the 3.5 points. You get more than a field goal. I like that. That's part of this exercise. 2, not only did we see previously that the Baltimore defense was, susceptible to the pass. That played out last week. Even in their win against Washington, Washington was able to move the ball very effectively through the air, down the field. Jaden Daniels looked really sharp. So I can only imagine good things coming from this Baker Mayfield-led offensive juggernaut suddenly rearing its head in Tampa Bay with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. It's worth noting that Mike Evans is questionable, so if he doesn't play, that could be a big difference maker. But
I'll be very sad on my fantasy team. But other than that,
But yeah, this Tampa Bay offense looks really good, and I think they are in position to challenge the Baltimore defense. I think the bigger thing for me is that if Detroit has looked like they have the best offense in football, in my eyes, I think Baltimore might be number 2. I think you're really underestimating how good Lamar has looked this year, how evasive in the pocket. I feel bad for some of these defensive linemen trying to tackle him. He can just make them look really, really silly. Not even attacking downfield with his legs the way he used to, but just surviving in the pocket for a couple extra seconds to find Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely or Zay Flowers downfield. That game against Washington, obviously Derrick Henry scored 2 touchdowns, but it was the Zay Flowers game. He had like 13 touches on the football between designed run and pass plays for like 150 yards. He was all over the place for them. So I think I've watched a lot of Baltimore this year because I've had a lot of money on Baltimore at various points, and their offense, man, is like so powerful. They have such a good line. It's just impossible to get Lamar Jackson on the ground, and they have arguably the best running back in football right now. Derrick Henry is just eating people up behind this Baltimore line. So I think I've reached a point where it's like, do not bet against Baltimore. So, and that would be the reason to say yuck to this. But Tampa Bay, their offense is designed to attack this Baltimore defense, and they're getting 3.5 points, which is a good bet by definition.
Yeah, I think you kind of laid it all out much better than I did, because I was just, every single time that I made a point, I was like, oh, and this other thing that I had thought about 3 days ago, and I was like, I just had to remember it all. But yeah, all good points, all heard. The line just excited me because I think this is going to be one of those games that the Ravens may get out to a big lead, but the Buccaneers are built to like come back against any sort of lead because they can score on a whim anytime. That's just how they're built. So I'm excited. That's going to be a fun game. I'm excited for that game.
Yeah. We got to shout out Baker Mayfield. Dude, I love Baker. Can you imagine being a Browns fan right now?
We could have had this guy, but instead we got the other guy back in the corner.
Yeah. If I could either honestly, this is real. If I had to get a finger on my non-dominant hand cut off, not my thumb, but a finger on my non-dominant hand cut off.
John's right hand for everybody.
Thank you. Or have to really dedicatedly and emotionally follow the Cleveland Browns for the next 25 years, I think I'd lose the finger, man. I don't think I want any part of that. The fact that they let Baker walk away and he's now just throwing bombs in Tampa Bay, while Deshaun Watson is eating up more cap than a hungry rhinoceros and is just the worst quarterback and worst person wearing an NFL jersey it's too much, man.
I remember I was watching like an Instagram reel clip, and it was a guy like interviewing people from London about like the team that they picked, why they picked them, and there was a Browns fan, and the guy was like, "What are you doing?" And he was just like, "I just like misery." And it was just like that is the epitome of what it is to be a Browns fan. They had 1 or 2 years of success, and now it's all over again.
My brother sent me a meme, which is like borderline offensive, but it cracked me up. It was like a guy in Syria. It was like written in Syrian and like Google translated, but a guy in Syria being like, "I live in Syria. Right now, Syria is a really horrible place to live. But living in Syria and being a Browns fan is a depth of hell that no human should experience." It's like, oh my guy, I'm sorry to hear that. That's just tough.
Oh, love a good meme discussion in the middle of a pod.
Yeah, I like that we took a break just to shit on the Browns. Okay,
it was needed.
Those are our Week 7 value dogs. I'm sure.
Cut the value dogs clip there. That's perfect.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have great success. Let's talk. I know, see, he's been trying to change the subject to avoid this upcoming conversation.
That is true.
Let's talk a little college football, and let's start with your, suddenly, it's yours now. Now it's yours.
We don't want it.
Your UW Huskies, 16-40, flouncing by the Iowa Hawkeyes. Where would you like to start?
I would like to start with the statement that we don't even have a game this week. We have to sit on this for 2 weeks. Like, we have to just sit here. After you and I talked last week about us beating Michigan and maybe being in the college football playoff, we talked about that last week. And then I
do not recall that conversation. I plead the fifth.
It was so rough. We just lost the turnover battle. Like, in all honesty, we just lost the turnover battle. Will Rogers with the interception and a fumble. And I think both were in a situation where we were kind of backed up, and Iowa really turned them into just offensive scores. Like, that was kind of the difference there. If we score even 6 points and take away their 14, like, that just becomes more of a game, and you can still play it out and you feel better. But losing 16-40 just is tough. Jonah Coleman even had a pretty good game, but he only got 9 touches. Like, 9 carries for 80 yards is pretty good. Damon Williams actually had 16 pass attempts, which is interesting. I think that was because Rodgers was just having such a rough game. But
they also pulled. This game was over in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
they pulled him.
As a freshman, it's just like the fact that we pulled our starting senior QB in the fourth quarter to let a freshman just get some reps in a game that we were down by 24. That's like putting Josh Rojas on the mound as the Mariners when you're down 12. It's just like, that's what that feels like, And so in those cases, it just doesn't feel great to be a UW fan.
Yeah, I think the first thing I want to note is that the Jonah Coleman stat you noted, 9 carries for 80 yards. That's not kind of good. That's almost 9 yards a carry. That's Ashton Jeanty stuff. Obviously a small sample size, but if your running back is averaging 9 yards a carry, it doesn't matter if you're down 40. You keep handing him the ball. He's getting basically a first down a play. We've talked about that before. Offensive play calling with this team can be a little iffy. You're 100% right about the turnover battle being lost. Will, after having such a solid start to the year, has now thrown 2 picks in his last 3 games, plus a fumble. We need him to do a better job controlling the turnovers. But my main takeaway from the game, seriously, and it was very obvious to me watching this, was that this was what we were afraid the Michigan game would be. This is an Iowa team that put up a 40-burger on us, and their quarterback threw the ball 14 times for 100 yards. Like, they basically didn't attack us through the air at all. They devoured us on the ground. Caleb Johnson, 21 carries, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. We could not stem the bleeding on the ground. And it's... I don't feel like an idiot for our comments about after the Michigan game, because Michigan is a really good analog for this Iowa team offensively, the way these two teams play. And we so effectively handled Michigan, it seemed out of the question that we would suddenly be so unable to stop a one-dimensional offense like this. But we were. The fact of the matter is they devoured us on the ground all game. And if this had happened in the Michigan game, we never would have talked about a potential playoff. So, yeah, in a way, it was almost the result we should have had last week, just a week late.
Yeah, I really, when it comes down to it, you look at the team stats. UW had 23 first downs to Iowa's 20. Total yards, UW had 393. Iowa had 328. Iowa ran, I think it was 51 plays. Let me check the box score really quick. 51 plays to our 80. Like, we had the ball for 35 of the 60 minutes of this game. And all things considered, statistically, we looked better than Iowa. But the turnovers in rough situations, and honestly, special teams also cost us. Grady Gross with another missed field goal. We'll shout him out.
Don't you say his name again.
Yeah, I think it just came down to the turnovers and when they occurred. Like, this team, we've said it before, and it's frequently been in regards to their red zone efficiency. This time it was because they were turning the ball over. Because, like I said, Iowa did not gain as many yards. They just ran a few really good running plays and were able to get these turnovers in a position where they could quickly score touchdowns, give the ball right back to us, and we still run out the clock too much. And I think it was just a tough game to watch because we couldn't recover. Like, it was one of those things where it was just like, okay, I think it was 10-10 at one point, yes. And then it just like spiraled. Like, it just took form and just flew into the distance, and I just could not follow it because it was hard to watch.
Yeah, and the score is an exaggeration. I mean, the game was over, and Iowa just continued to pour it on, and UW was kind of giving up. So it separated more than I think is representative, but I do think, you read off those stats and they are encouraging stats. But the thing is, this is a team, we averaged 5 yards per play to their 6.4. We were throwing the ball when they were running the ball. They were more efficient running the ball on the ground in terms of yards per play than we were throwing it through the air. And what that really speaks to is our inability to generate big plays offensively while they were ripping off big ones left and right. That was a big part of, that's how you put up 40 points while not controlling the time of possession. They were dicing this defense up with big plays on the ground. Yeah, and I think late third quarter, early fourth, it was just apparent that this defense was not going to be able to control Iowa's ground game. UW kind of threw up the flag a little bit, and Iowa was like, you know what? We're 3-2, right now. We're going to go ahead and keep running the ball all over you guys. And I can't even blame them for that because, that's what you got to do when you're in the Big Ten and you're trying to make a name for yourself. So
I was going to say, they were like, let's give them the taste of what the real Big Ten is like after the Michigan game.
Let's do to them what nobody can do to the Ducks. Yeah, no, that's 100% fair. So I guess I don't have a ton more to say about the game. I think this obviously really changes our perspective on what this Husky season can be. I'm now looking down the barrel of Indiana, Penn State, Oregon over the next 5 weeks, and I would be thrilled with one of those wins. I would be super duper. Obviously, that's the 2, 3, and 16 teams in the country, but if we could steal one upset and have just a fun season, that would be very exciting to me.
Yeah, if we come out of this stretch 5-5, I would feel ecstatic. We'll talk about the Indiana game next week. Indiana looks tough to beat. They're 6-0 right now. They've looked very good over the course of the season. It might be a team that we can attack in a different style. It doesn't seem like they run the ball nearly as well. So we'll see about how that compares, and we'll look at that next week. But it is a little. I'm feeling a little worse for wear as a UW fan.
Yeah, I hear that loud and clear. So they're going into a bye this week, so we're going to lick our wounds here a little bit, and then we'll have a lot more to say about them next week as we get prepped for that big Indiana game.
Yep.
Moving on, let's talk. Sorry, did you have something to say?
I was going to talk about UW as a defense. They're still 18th in the nation in terms of points per game, and I think
crazy.
That's actually
they just gave up 40, and they're still in the top 20. That's amazing.
Yeah, Yeah. Granted, their first 2 games, I think they only gave up 3 points in each of those, and those were against some nothing burger teams. So there's things to be noted where this defense is not as good as it shows up on paper because of those other games. So I just wanted to point that out because offensively they've been so middling, and it's been so frustrating. So.
Yep, loud and clear. You're 100% right. And it reminded me again of that defense last year in terms of they can do a lot of things really well. Defending the run does not appear to be one of them.
Yes.
And that is the ultimate discouraging thing in my mind. It's like I would rather be able to defend the run than defend the pass because at least you can hope for a mistake from the quarterback or a drop from the wide receiver or something. Miscommunication. But when, a 250-pound dude has the ball in his hands and is running at you, you have to just be able to defend him. And
yes,
that's been an area that UW has kind of struggled in the last couple of years. All right, let's talk a little Wazoo. They came back. They had their bye week after the Boise State flouncing and had a nice 25-17 win over Fresno State. This was a competitive game against a 3-3, Mountain West, soon to be Pac-12 rival in Fresno State. Did you have any big overarching thoughts about this game?
Not necessarily the game. I think this was a pretty average to actually below average game for Wazoo. To only score 25 against Fresno State, I feel like they've been very explosive offensively, and they were kind of shut down a little bit. So maybe teams are figuring out how to slow John Mateer just a tad, not entirely, but just enough. But I want to talk about how they're 5-1 and not ranked. Like Wazoo they played Boise State really tough, and Boise State, we talked about it, is like probably going to be in the college football playoff. And Wazoo being 5-1, having beat UW, and obviously they beat everybody else that they've played. Like Wazoo has looked really good. They should be in the top 25, maybe like sitting 23 or 25 or something. But for them to be unranked at this point feels a little bit. I can't think of the word right now, but I'm going to go with mean. That's just that's the word that came into my head.
I think. The fact of the matter is, the reason for that is because their best win of the season is against UW, who is, the 6th best team in the Big Ten, if that. And, the Boise State game, I think, was more competitive than that final score shows, but the fact of the matter is they lost by 21 to that Boise State team. That you are right. I'll be damned if they don't make I don't care if they lose 6 straight. If I don't see Ashton Genty in the college football playoff, I'm rioting. I'm finding the AP guys. And yeah, ultimately, they're not ranked yet, but I think they will be. I think this is a team that could rise in the rankings pretty precipitously over the last 6 games of the season. We talked before about how this team has a real chance to run the table over the remaining 6 games of the year. And we're going to see a lot of losses pile up in the current top 25. There's going to be too much, team-on-team crime. It's going to be a lot of violence and a lot of teams dropping because of it, which will give an opportunity for a team like Wazoo to rise. I still believe if they finish their season, what would that be? They're 5-1 now, so if they finish 11-1 and win the very, very small Pac-12, but still have that next to their name, 11-1 Pac-12 champion Washington State, they'll have a chance at sneaking in at 12. I really do think that, even though they're unranked.
Yeah, no, 100%.
They'll have to win all 6. I really do believe that. But they can do it. They can do it. They have the ability to do it. And I think if they do it, they'll have a real shot. Looking at this game specifically, I think there are some concerns about the fact that this offense, led by John Mateer, has looked a little slow. And I'm a tiny bit worried that teams are starting to figure out Mateer a little bit. My favorite quarterback in college football, John Mateer. He'll look so dynamic in one game, and then he'll have a game like today where, 17 to 35, 172 and a pick throwing the ball. That's not a very good game as a passer. And then on the ground, where he has had some unbelievable outings, he had 18 carries. The starting running back had 12 carries. He had 1.5 times the number of carries of the starting running back. And it was to the tune of 46 yards, 2.6 yards per carry. And he did end up getting a touchdown on the ground. But he just did not. This was probably his worst game of the season in terms of statistical output. And Fresno State has a tough defense, but I worry that part of that is people, figuring out his tricks a little bit. And that'll be, they want to run the table, he's going to have to reclaim some of that magic.
100%. Yeah. One other thing to note is that, so Mateer lost a fumble, he had the interception, and Wazoo scored a touchdown on an interception of their own. So really offensively, they were not performing nearly as well as we thought, as we feel like they have been over the course of the season. So kind of a rough one.
Been dropping 40, and they put up 18 offensive points against Fresno State.
They're currently ranked 20th in the nation in offense, just in terms of points per game. Granted, that's super inflated by a couple big games. One 70-pointer against Portland State and the 54, I believe, against San Diego State.
Or San Jose State, yep.
San Jose State. So yeah, this was after a bye. After a bye week, this was kind of a rough. Maybe everybody has the bye week didn't necessarily do them any favors, but they should have come out here guns blazing, and it felt like they were definitely stymied by this Fresno State defense. So we will see if they can turn it around, and Hawaii is a great opponent to turn it around against.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we looked at Fresno and said, okay, this could be a little bit of a challenge, and honestly, their season after this Hawaii game, San Diego State, Utah State, New Mexico, and Oregon State, that will be, their stretch run before hopefully a cleanup game against Wyoming. That'll be their stretch run to try and go undefeated. This will be hopefully a nice Mateer get-right game against our Rainbow Warriors of Hawaii. Currently 2-4. They do not look very good offensively, and their defense is a bit of a sieve. So if ever there's a chance for Mateer to shake the dust and figure this out, it'll be against Hawaii.
Yeah, the spread is currently Wazoo minus 19 points. So we are hoping for that swing to be true. I don't really see much else with regards to this game. I think it's going to be a bit of a blowout. It is interesting to note that Hawaii played a really tough game against San Diego State, only losing 27-24 recently. And they did, they played Boise State and held Boise State to 28 points. Like, Wazoo cannot say the same thing. So I think it'll be an interesting game. We'll see if Hawaii is able to use what Fresno State did defensively against Mateer and see if they can, contain him. And if they're able to do that, then we really need to have a discussion on, is this Wazoo team going to be able to do anything this season, or are they going to be just an an average offense in place of what felt like something that could really be explosive early on in the season?
Totally. Yep. And they'll need to prove that out here in the coming weeks. But kind of a wait and see situation. I really like Mateer. I believe in what he can do, but he's got to play smarter. And I think him and the coaching staff have to rely on his legs less. 18 carries a game is too many carries. Let's get him in the pocket more, looking downfield more, and taking advantage with his legs when he sees an advantage. Less designed runs, more improvised runs. Yeah, but that's really all I have to say about them. You want to touch on Kraken, and then we can let these sweet, sweet people get some sleep.
Yeah, we can. And by sweet, sweet people, we're talking about ourselves, actually.
Yeah, we're the two sweetest people there
It's 11:45 for me at night. If you couldn't tell, I just got back from the Blues game. So we hopped right in here, and we are ready to go. The Kraken currently sitting, they just beat the Flyers 6-4 while we've been recording. And they're 3-2 on the season right now. Lost to the Blues in game 1. And is there anything you really specifically want to note about this Kraken offense, the defense, anything? We've talked about their kind of contract structure and what's been going on with the team. How do you feel like they've been playing? Good.
My major takeaway is I am impressed with their offensive output under this new administration. Started the season with a 3-2 loss to the Blues that we discussed. They had a stinker of an 0-2 loss against the Dallas Stars on Sunday. But in their other 3 of their 5 games, they scored 5, 7, and 6 goals respectively. That is high offensive output for what this team was doing last year. Nobody scored more 2 and 3 goal games in the NHL than the Kraken last year. And to see them, kind of step it up a little bit and be a little more offensively dynamic, putting up these higher goal numbers is very encouraging to me. Particularly considering, as we discussed, it's largely the same group out there. It's the same people doing this, but it's some scheme things and some design things from the head coach on down. And it seems to be working. A little more energy out there, a little more speed. And yeah, it's nice to see. Starting off with a loss, they're already back above 500 at 3-2. The West is kind of a mess right now. Calgary Flames are undefeated, but everybody else is just kind of beating each other to a pulp. So staying above 500, keeping the heads above water, that's all you can really hope for. I know at some point we'll do a real deep dive of the Kraken once we've had a chance to really watch more tape, but as this season just gets underway, I am encouraged. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's been kind of a frenetic pace by the Kraken. They've taken 126 shots. Their shooting percentage is actually pretty low when it comes to with regards to the rest of the league. They're only shooting 10.3%. And really what it is, they've scored one power play goal. Like overall, they just have not been super effective. And granted, it's been 5 games. Like we're not saying this is going to be the season, but it's been 5 games. They've scored one power play goal, and they've just really been unable to convert in those circumstances. And I think it's because they're just firing off shots as much as they can. They're just like, hey, if we get the puck across that that second blue line, take a shot, and it may result in some goals for the other teams. And that's why, we've seen the guys, get ahead and then fall behind pretty rapidly. I think you see more changes in momentum with this play style, but it also results in a lot more goals. Like you're saying, we scored 5, 6, and 7 over the last few games, and it's attributed to that. It's just a pure volume thing right now where they're just getting offense going by just trying to be aggressive.
Yeah, yep. Loud and clear. I hear you. But yeah, I think overall, positive, encouraging signs. We'll need to see what this looks like against higher quality opponents. Is part of it as well. We have not necessarily faced the same caliber of competition as the top of the divisions, but so far so good.
Yeah, not much else to say. We are excited about the 3-2 start. Both, I guess you're a little bit more happy or excited about this team. I'm a little standoffish with them with regards to how good I think they're going to be.
Sure. After last year, that's very
We'll
fair.
see how it comes out.
Yeah.
But if the offense can keep doing what it's been doing and the defense can sharpen up a little bit, I could be okay with this, and I could see them sneaking into a wild card spot.
Heard. Loud and clear.
All right. One quick note. Since we last talked, the Sounders still had yet to play their final game of the season against the Timbers. That has not changed. They play, I believe, on Saturday, October 19th, and that will be the final game of the season. They're basically locked into this third spot. LAFC is 61 points now, and the Sounders are sitting pretty at third at 56. I'm not sure if Real Salt Lake has a game left, but we'll see what happens there. If we win this, we are set in third, and that's a great matchup against what is the Colorado Rapids, which I think we were able to beat a few times this year. So that would be a great setup for us getting into the playoffs.
Agreed. Yeah, that would be exciting. Yeah, excited for rivalry week against the Timbers, and yeah, it's been quite a comeback. Excited to see if we can roll into something in the playoff. I do not want to see us matched up against a team with LA in the name, but I know that'll have to happen eventually. So all we can do is watch and enjoy.
Yes. Anything else, John, before I sign us out? I know we're right on the hinges of college basketball doors opening, so we will definitely have that discussion here pretty quick.
John Rosenberg has been pounding on my door every day saying, get me on the pod. I've got so much to talk about. So we'll have to have him on soon for his yearly ZAG preseason breakdown. Yeah, we'll have a lot of college basketball to talk about. Yeah, as MLS and, baseball and women's basketball winds down, it'll be a lot of football. It'll be a lot of college basketball going forward. So excited for that.
Yes. All right. Well, for John Carey, I'm Tyler Cartwright. This has been the Sound Up Seattle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode of Sound Up Seattle, please feel free to give us a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hey, give us a follow or give us a like and subscribe or whatever it is on YouTube. We had a nice showing actually on one of our videos. We had like 55 views on one of the videos that was belittling DK Metcalf. So, negativity gets clicks.
We know where our bread's buttered.
You can find Sound Up Seattle on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, all at Sound Up Seattle, all lowercase, all one word. You can email us your questions, comments, or concerns at soundupseattle@gmail.com. You can find me, Tyler, at TyCart50, everywhere that's important. And you can find John
installing scour monitors in Okanagan. Let's come hang out. Bring me Guinness.
Scour monitors. Love that. I guess with all that being said, let's go Hawks.
Let's go Cougars, baby. I'm all in.
I think they're going to smack them around. We got to get the Hawks some encouragement here.
Fair enough.